I've been unable to approach women because I didn't know what I'm about to share with you today. You've probably heard phrases like, make women feel special. They're sensitive to atmosphere, so plan something special for them, right? But honestly, those are outdated ways of thinking that completely ignore women's true nature. I wish we weren't still stuck in the same outdated mindset. I'm asking this just in case, but I hope no one actually believes statements like, women are sensitive to atmosphere, they're easily swayed by it. I hope we can move beyond that outdated mindset. Just to be clear, no one still believes that women care about atmosphere, or women are weak when it comes to atmosphere, right? In relationships, there's a clear power dynamic at play. The side that gains the upper hand ends up controlling the situation. Who would willingly reveal all their weaknesses? As I've gotten older, I've come to realize this. I thought that if I genuinely treated someone well, it would eventually work out, but reality wasn't like that. Today, I'll share the core insights for those who, like my past self, kept getting rejected and hurt because they didn't know better. To be honest, I hesitated to share this because I wasted so much money, time, and energy to gain this knowledge, but I promised to help raise the average attractiveness of American men, so I have to keep my word. If you change your mind later, I might delete the video, so it's best to watch it multiple times when you have the chance. Let's get started. The first thing you need to understand is the psychology of avoiding loss. Most men think that if they treat a woman well, she'll eventually come to appreciate their efforts. However, they overlook the fact that the more you give, the easier it becomes for her to walk away at any time. Why is that? If a woman hasn't invested anything in you, she feels no obligation to stay if she's not interested. Men who pride themselves on being romantic often take women to expensive fine dining restaurants or Michelin-starred restaurants to win their affection. However, this only serves to trap themselves. The more you invest, the harder it is to back out. For example, if you go to a $500 restaurant and the woman is cold and indifferent throughout the date, you might want to leave immediately. But since you've already spent $500, you rationalize it by thinking, it's a waste, and force yourself to smile and endure it. Before you know it, you tell yourself, women like kind and gentle men, so I should just endure it, and you keep deceiving yourself. On the other hand, what about the woman? Since she hasn't spent her own money and hasn't invested much emotionally, she can walk away at any time without feeling like she's losing anything. This is where the seesaw tips. Psychologically, this is called loss aversion. The more you invest in something, whether it's money, effort, or emotions, the harder it becomes to back down. The same applies to dating. If you want to attract a woman, you should encourage her to invest more in you rather than investing heavily yourself. However, most men have been doing the opposite. They buy expensive gifts, swipe their credit cards, and go out of their way to plan events, deluding themselves into thinking, she must like me if I'm doing all this for her. In doing so, they end up making themselves look weak and vulnerable. Women are instinctively attracted to strong, confident men. This is obvious to anyone, and it's an instinct that's been passed down through humanity for ages, regardless of personal preferences. Yet many men are mistaken. They think, I'm giving to women because I want to, not because I expect anything in return. But deep down, they're choosing the easy path, thinking, if I treat her well, she'll date me. It feels much easier to just give unconditionally than to work out for years, to build a body, make deliberate efforts to increase one's value, or buy an expensive car to show off. The problem is that the more you choose the easy path, the more you end up tying yourself down rather than capturing a woman's heart. You can see this in dating shows. Even when a woman clearly says, I don't like you, there are men who keep pushing, saying, wait, I'll come to you, relying solely on their passion. At that moment, the woman feels uncomfortable and even cries, but the man firmly believes, women are weak to sincerity. Someday she'll understand my true feelings. Why does this mindset exist? It's because we've been told all our lives, just do your best, put your pride aside, and keep trying hard, and eventually they'll come around. But half-hearted sacrifices or forcing yourself to open your wallet won't work. Even if you get lucky and start dating someone, you'll end up in a situation where you're just getting $500 a month. Even in unwanted situations, if the other person expresses the slightest dissatisfaction, you end up feeling anxious. If you position yourself as the weaker party from the start, you'll inevitably end up being dragged around in the relationship. Interestingly, women feel the same way. They worry that if they open up too easily, the man might see them as superficial, and they're tormented by the fear that if they sleep with him and he loses interest, they'll be left heartbroken. Ultimately, the person with greater anxiety ends up losing in this seesaw game. Greater anxiety means greater desperation, and desperation weakens one's bargaining power. Think about salary negotiations. If you have 2 children at home and quitting your job would mean financial ruin, the moment the company discovers this weakness, you lose the negotiation. No matter how capable you are, the disadvantage remains the same. On the other hand, if the company is more desperate, they might immediately agree to a 30% raise when you ask for it. Then you might think, I should have asked for more. The same principle applies to dating. Whether you're a man or a woman, the one with more anxiety loses. A truly attractive man doesn't easily show his interest even when he meets a beautiful woman. Even if he likes her, he doesn't show it on his face and acts according to his own schedule and standards. I once met a woman who was close to my ideal type, and in the past I would have used every means possible to act like a vulnerable man. But this time was different. I maintained my value and continued the relationship, and she eventually said, I was worried you were just acting cool, so I thought I should back off. That's when I realized, women are just as insecure as men. I was essentially sabotaging myself all along. After that, I started meeting women I never imagined I could date. That's when I finally understood. In the end, you have to be willing to let go to gain something. The second thing I want to say is that you have to let go of your unrealistic expectations of women. For example, let's say you're into a woman who you think is a 70 out of 100, but she doesn't like you at all. Most men would think, I can't let her go, and cling to her even more. But what they're really missing is the fact that there are women out there who are 80 or 85 points. Some women might simply like your face or the way you talk, or be drawn to some small, insignificant charm, and like you for no particular reason. Yet we keep assigning special meaning to that one woman and become obsessed with her. Why do we do that? It's because of the fear that I'll never find another woman with this kind of body, this kind of face, or this kind of energy. But there are many women out there who are more beautiful, more compatible, and more charming because we don't take the initiative to meet new people. We end up fixating on one person and assigning meaning to them. On the other hand, attractive men fundamentally believe that they can always find someone better than the woman they're with. This mindset is evident in their words and actions. If they're not interested, they cut ties quickly and act as if their time and energy are more valuable. This makes the woman feel anxious, thinking, what if I lose this man? And she becomes even more attracted to him. As a result, the man can easily secure the unique position of being the only one who initiated the relationship without making any significant effort. This is connected to the instinctive attraction to dominant males. Third, expand your worldview. Don't live like a frog in a well. Think back to your college days. If there was just one person in your department who looked like Scarlett Johansson, everyone would go crazy, saying, wow, she's the most beautiful person in the universe. But once you step outside, you easily encounter people who are much more beautiful and attractive. Once you realize that, there's no reason to cling desperately like before. What's even more interesting is that these days, with the advancement of plastic surgery and dermatology, women are competing with each other to look beautiful, putting in a lot of effort. In other words, the rarity of beautiful women is decreasing. On the other hand, a man's true charm, things like confidence, a sense of humor, or the ability to take charge of a situation, can't be easily achieved with money or surgery. Therefore, those qualities remain highly desirable, making them more rare. If you look closely around you, most men are all the same. They approach things in the same way, think the same way, and repeat the same old lines. As a result, even a small difference in behavior can give you a competitive edge. The fundamental reason why women seem difficult is the anxiety that if I lose this woman, everything is over, so they end up overspending on things like Michelin-starred restaurants or expensive concert tickets. But when you broaden your worldview, you gain the confidence that even if it's not this woman, I can meet others. This allows you to approach conversations with much more ease and confidence. Let's just go to the movie theater and smell the popcorn. When I'm feeling down, the smell of popcorn is the best. Saying something like that naturally becomes a charming trait. Fourth, don't be afraid of failure. I used to be unable to speak a single word to a woman. I would imagine all sorts of ridiculous scenarios like, what if she rejects me? Or what if her boyfriend shows up and hits me? And scare myself. Then I thought, if someone dresses like that, they must already have a boyfriend, and gave up trying altogether. That way, I didn't get rejected, so it seemed safe. But if you just let time pass like that, nothing is left. The problem is that if this state continues, self-justification becomes even more ingrained. You end up telling yourself, that person is good looking, so it's natural that I can't do it. Eventually, you spend your life without making any attempts, and when someone else boasts, I succeeded, you refuse to acknowledge it because admitting it feels like admitting defeat. If you keep falling into this cycle of rationalization, you'll end up truly missing your chance. But once you acquire charm, it's like riding a bike. You never forget it. It can be used anytime, even after 10 or 20 years, and it remains applicable even as you age. That's the essence of charm. When your love life goes well, other aspects of life start to flow smoothly too. You gain confidence in your relationships, and that energy fuels your work with passion. So even if you're afraid right now, don't be afraid of failing once or twice. What really matters isn't failure itself, but the attitude of trying to solve everything in your head without even attempting anything. You'll definitely feel it after hearing what I've said. The fear of loss, fantasies about women, a narrow worldview, and the fear of failure. All of these were the chains that bound me in the past, and many of you may be bound by the same chains, but now you have a choice. You can continue to rely on cards and wait vaguely for things to work out someday, or you can learn how to truly attract women and live freely. The former is the frustrating and foolish way of the past, while the latter is a skill you can use for the rest of your life. Ultimately, what matters most is cultivating the attitude of a man who can walk away at any moment without showing desperation. Even when a woman plays hard to get, you can say, "Oh, really? Then I'll go somewhere else," and walk away. Then, in the seesaw game, the woman becomes impatient and you gain the upper hand. Being strong doesn't mean being deliberately rude. It means having confidence in your own value and not clinging to it. That's all for today's story. Thank you to everyone who watched until the end. We at Dating After 40 will continue to share women's honest feelings and delicate emotions in greater depth. Please support us with your subscriptions and likes. Thank you.